Hello,
Hey,
I'm Calista,
I'm Nick.
and welcome to our podcast.
It's obviously really professional.
I'm totally not in my garage right now.
I'm
My name
not.
totally is not Nick. It's Calista.
I'm not on my floor in my bedroom, and I am Nick.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way.
All right. So what are we doing today?
So today, we are going to be talking about movies that we hate. I was going to say dislike, but
No, you can. We don't need to be nice
that
about it.
underscores it because we definitely absolutely hate these movies.
I put something on my Instagram story to ask people what movies they hate, and I said like on the bottom, not to be negative, I just want to know. And the point of this isn't to be negative and to be like, we're gonna complain for an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a preface. It's our opinion. And if you disagree with any of what we say, that's perfectly fine. And don't attack us because I'm sure you will disagree with what we say.
But there's one of these movies that if you do like it,
Yes, I will. I
I
will judge you.
I will be uncomfortable in a room with you or even
Hmm.
like in an elevator with you.
And we'll get into that.
Very important. This is again super unprofessional. This is our first time we're ever doing
Oh
this.
yeah, absolutely. We have no experience whatsoever. We're just having fun, and we wanted to put this out there.
It's like if you're a fly on the wall of this conversation.
Exactly.
We've had this conversation together already like 10 times, but now we're
Hmm.
recording it.
And now we're going to spill exactly how we feel in detail.
It's some of it's like it's complicated for some of them,
Yes,
but some of
yep.
them I genuinely can't grasp why it's enjoyable at all.
So we have a few movies on this list. I think we're gonna go in like the order of oldest to newest.
Because organization is a good thing.
Exactly. We came organized. You see this?
If I'm ever silent, I'm taking a giant sip of water.
Yeah, I can't take a sip of water because this microphone will like pick up every sound of it.
Wait, did you hear my gulp?
I did not hear your gulp.
Okay, because this it could be ASMR. We could do like two.
We could do an ASMR one.
ASMR podcast, does that exist? It has to.
I feel like it definitely does, but we were onto something.
All right.
Okay, so we are going to start with The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976.
Ooh,
Director Nicholas Roeg, I think is how you pronounce his name.
we'll never
But
know.
if not, I'm so sorry. And we are going to be reading the synopsis from Letterboxd. So here we go. Power, space, time, and a visitor. Thomas Jerome Newton is an alien who has come to Earth in search of water to save his home planet. Aided by lawyer Oliver Farnsworth, Thomas uses his knowledge of advanced technology to create profitable inventions. While developing a method to transport water, Thomas meets Mary Lou, a quiet hotel clerk, and begins to fall in love with her. Just as he is ready to leave Earth, Thomas is interrupted by the US government, and his plan is threatened. Wow, they really understated Mary Lou's role.
Mary Lou is the
Hmm.
star of the show.
I think the first thing I want to say is that the only good thing about this movie is David Bowie.
Nothing hurts me more than the fact that a movie from the 70s starring David Bowie, looking his best in my personal
Hmm.
opinion,
He looks great.
the movie is an absolute flop.
It is. I can't even explain how we felt after we finished watching it. It was the biggest disappointment of all time.
It's just so boring. It's so boring.
It is. So we had watched this together, and towards the middle or the end of it, it felt like such a chore to sit through. At
Mhm.
one point, we seriously just started coming up with our own plot and characterizations to project onto the movie because it was so boring.
Literally at the end of the movie, there was a point where there was just this character we didn't know,
Yeah,
and
he
we
came
just
in out
gave
of
him we
nowhere.
gave him a name, we gave him a plot. We were voicing over the movie because of how mind-numbingly boring it was. Even the plot of the movie that
Yes,
he just read, it's not even clear. And maybe
it,
we're stupid.
and even the plot that they gave us, like it doesn't go any deeper than that.
No.
And it's so incomprehensible in every sense of the word and hard to follow.
Because okay, so this is a movie where everything is happening at once, but nothing is happening at the same time. And I know that makes
Exactly.
no sense, but so literally, alien David Bowie crashes into a lake or something. He walks out of the lake. He goes to sell some rings to make money because he wants to. What does he even want to do? He wants his alien planet is going through a drought, so
Yeah,
he
don't they
wants to
just
like
want water?
he wants water. So he
And
becomes a
speaking of the
billionaire.
alien planet, they flash back to that occasionally, but it's done so terribly. that you were just sitting there asking yourself what is happening.
My brain just blanked out because I'm trying to think of anything substantial about the movie and I really can't.
That's the point. There's nothing to talk about because there's nothing of substance. It is that insane. I don't know how you can score such a great cast member and make a movie that has nothing of value,
And the cinematography is really pretty too.
but they ruin it.
All right. I wasn't going to mention this,
Oh, I'm so ready.
but you do see his dick.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that. You do. The movie is so boring that we forgot that happened.
Listen, I know that it's shocking that you'd forget something like that, but it's so boring that at the end of the movie, you just want to like take out your brain and smash it to smithereens.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how it feels watching it anyway.
Yeah, this was probably one of the most painful experiences to sit through, not because it's like disgusting like some of these other movies we have on the list, but just because of how mundane it is and how nothing happens, and it's a pretty long movie, am I wrong?
It's so long. It's so long. I just remembered. I know this sounds super convoluted because if you've never seen this, we're just ranting about random points of the movie. But there are these side characters that are just there for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, just nothing happens. And like, you spent 2 hours watching this, and then you just want to kill yourself afterwards.
Yep, you're sitting there wondering why anybody would recommend this, why it was rated pretty average.
The only reason why it has good reviews anywhere is because David Bowie fans
Exactly.
are like, oh, David Bowie's pretty.
I
Yum.
want it to be redeemed somehow, but I'm sorry, David Bowie, not even you could make this movie fantastic.
So I have a quote from Roger Ebert.
Okay.
And he was talking about how the movie has good performances, but the plot isn't worth the good performances. I wouldn't even give it. What did we give it? 1 star?
I think we both gave it 1 star. I think I gave it the full star for David Bowie.
That's what I was just going to say. 1 star for the one David Bowie.
Yes, for the one. And
I don't even. It's hard to talk about this because the biggest complaint that I have, which isn't nuanced at all, is just it's so just painfully boring.
yep,
And
I
we're
agree.
redundant at this point, but oh my god, I would rather watch paint dry because it's the same experience.
It would.
Yes,
It
David
might
Bowie's
be better.
beautiful, but it's not.
David Bowie
going
can
to
join
be
us in
it.
watching the paint dry.
Oh, man, I wish he could.
God,
Rest
so
in
sad.
peace. If you want to watch a David Bowie movie, watch
Watch
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth.
Please, just save yourself. Skip this. It's not worth it to see a stick.
Yeah, it's not even worth it.
Oh my god. All right. I'm sweating for this one.
We're gonna have a lot to say about this one, so buckle up.
So I'm going to read the synopsis for this movie from Letterboxd. Before I even get into this, huge content warning, like a lot of upsetting things and disturbing things. So if that's something you don't want to hear, I would not listen to this.
Yeah, I don't even want to name the specifics because that might be triggering in amongst itself. So pretty much any bad thing you can think of.
I was going to say that. Just think of everything horrible, and that's this movie. With that being said, kids, round of applause.
Yeah, everybody.
This came out in 1995 and was directed by Larry Clark, who I now hate, know nothing about, but he made this movie, so I have to hate him.
I have a lot to say about Larry Clark and Harmony Korine.
Here it goes. Here's the summary, according to Letterboxd. A controversial portrayal of teens in New York City, which exposes a deeply disturbing world of sex and substance abuse. The film focuses on a sexually reckless, freckle-faced boy named Telly, whose goal is to have sex with as many different girls as he can. When Jenny, a girl who has had sex only once, tests positive for HIV, she knows she contracted the disease from Telly. When Jenny discovers that Telly's idea of safe sex is to only have sex with virgins and is continuing to pass the disease onto other unsuspecting girls, Jenny makes it her business to try and stop him.
There is quite literally nothing enjoyable about this movie, and it is possibly my least favorite movie of all time.
Every single thing that I just read, every word, who would want to sit down and see that?
Yeah, but for some reason we sat through it, and it was probably the biggest regret of my life.
All right, now I'm gonna say something which I think is pretty important.
Okay.
So I personally, and I know you do, and like our other friends, we like to watch disturbing shit sometimes. It's interesting to watch like a disturbing movie, you know, you sit, you get the shock value, and afterwards you talk about it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's enjoyable, sometimes it's not, whatever. This is something that, even though I like to watch disturbing movies and I consider myself pretty desensitized to a lot of like dark stuff, because I've seen a lot of it. This made me feel physically ill.
So gross.
And I
I
don't know if people are gonna like say that we're sensitive for having such a
mhm.
strong reaction to this movie, but especially like being a young person and watching a movie about young people.
And here's the thing. In a lot of reviews and a lot of people talking about it, the first thing that they will say is that it's so raw and beautifully real. It's not beautifully real. It's
Oh
like
my God.
disgustingly vile.
The
Go
one
ahead.
thing that I can give it is that it is realistic, and I've read reviews saying it seems like a documentary at sometimes, which it does. It's so realistic. Like these kids are so believable in their parts, which I
Mhm.
guess you can give it to the actors. Like, good
Yeah.
job, you portrayed
I
this evil person so well. But it's still a movie, and movies are for enjoyment, and there's absolutely no enjoyment at
mhm.
all.
I would agree with you that the actors like play their part in a way that makes the characters believable.
Mhm.
But to me, the notion that this film is just so real in like a realistic real world setting is just so drastically overstated. They make this seem like this is how most kids act. It's just not true. It's not how like a lot of people act. This, if anything, it's a very like niche.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very
Yeah.
specific, like dark underworld of
Hmm.
1990s, like New York City kids. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny the fact that kids like this existed and still exist, maybe,
Yeah.
and
Of
they like
course.
honed in on that specifically. But I will say that this movie made me more afraid of men than I already am.
Oh, for sure. Just
Okay, so let's talk about the main character.
yes.
The main
Can we do
character,
that?
like I read, is a young boy named Telly. He's like 17, okay?
Hmm.
17, 18 years old. So he calls himself, and this makes me want to vomit while I'm saying it, but he calls himself the virgin surgeon.
I
What? What's
just
up?
watching that character was something that throughout the whole thing made me feel so ill. It was just disgusting to sit through. And the thing that bothers me most is that the film itself doesn't really attempt to say anything in particular. Like, there's no
No,
message. It
no.
doesn't attempt to deep dive into the mentality of the kids or the mentality of Telly.
I mean, it's complicated because I agree that there's literally no message. It just shows this stuff happening and then it ends. And we'll get to the end later because that's even worse
Hmm.
than
Yeah.
anyway. So if yeah, I was gonna say before, like the synopsis, if this is a movie that's, it actually does something with these characters and it's redeeming at all, maybe it could be good. But
Yes.
everything
Exactly.
I read, like this guy literally has sex with prepubescent girls.
Hmm.
That's his mission. And he's carrying HIV unbeknownst to him and passes it on to all of these young girls. And a girl who's played by Chloe Sevigny, who contracts HIV from him, she tries to stop him. That's literally the whole movie.
That's
Like
it.
nothing else happens. I mean, other stuff happens, which is worse somehow. Nothing's resolved. There's no redeeming arc for any character. That is all that happens. You watch all of that horrible stuff unfold
Hmm.
and then it ends and you're just sitting there nauseous afterwards.
Yes, you're waiting for the antagonist to get what's coming to him to no avail. You're left feeling gross, like a husk of a person. And the characterization in general of all of them, in my opinion at least, is pretty shallow and dirty. Besides maybe Jenny, because we get to see a little bit more into her. But Chloe, she definitely puts forth her best effort, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really like do much to help the film. And besides her character, Jenny, a majority of the other characters aren't likable at all. And you aren't given enough time with them to truly develop an attachment to them. You obviously still end up feeling bad for the victims.
I don't want to play devil's advocate too much. I sound like someone from like political science class. I'm just talking about this movie.
Yeah.
Um, But the whole antagonist not getting a redemption in this movie, like it doesn't not make sense because men
Oh
do
yeah,
get away with a lot of this
absolutely.
stuff in real life. And like if Telly doesn't get what's coming to him by like doing what he's doing with these underage girls, it makes sense because men get away with horrible things all the time.
Mhm.
So it makes it more bleak and more depressing and even more real in a way. But still, no matter how much I can defend the movie, which is insane to do it all, it's still insufferable to witness. If you have any soul, if you have any empathy watching these characters go through this, at the hands of this sociopathic 17-year-old kid. It's a horrible experience. Oh my god, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I want to scream.
Just made me very suspicious of Harmony Korine and even Larry Clark.
Oh my god.
Let me just read you a quote I have from Larry Clark, who is the director. "We wanted to make an insider's look at gnarly adolescent culture that you'd never get to see otherwise. Like the real world, pushed into something hyper and insane." What?
Ew.
And I can't wrap my brain around how much of a sense of pride they have in creating something so vile. And then there's something else that I really bothered me. So they said that everything in the film had happened in real life except for Jenny, which is not the problem in this quote. Let's get to like the next part. "We had to have the maiden tied to the railroad tracks. And I came up with this thing about a girl getting HIV from one sexual experience." How is that how you are like viewing this? Of all things you could say. And then I hate to like take control of this.
No, it's fine.
But then Harmony Korine said, and by the way, this is all from a Rolling Stones interview, "The AIDS thing was just like Jaws. It was a device that propelled it. We didn't know anything about this disease other than that we didn't want to get it." So they are so proud of that. How are you okay with saying that?
You can talk about these topics, okay? It's not off the table by any means. But this movie specifically, the sexual content is even more disturbing with the fact that the actual cast members are actual children in real life.
Yes.
The actors are children. Here's a quote while we're reading quotes, because
Yes.
we came prepared a little bit, at least. By the Daily Beast. Reliable, who knows, but it's a real quote. Here it is. "The kids in kids are actual kids." For example, during the panel that followed the screening of like the 20th anniversary thing, cast member Rosario Dawson, who played Ruby, talked about being a 15-year-old playing a 17-year-old. So she was 15 in real life and her character was 17. So her real life age was younger than her actual character's age. So nowadays you have older people playing younger people, so that if they talk about like explicit content or they like partake in sex scenes, it's less uncomfortable and it's more, it's okay. In this movie, there are actual children in explicit, disturbing sex scenes, and not even just sex scenes, like statutory rape scenes.
Yes, it makes you wonder when you watch this film. If you do, don't, by the way, but if you do, you will be left wondering how they got away with what they did, and not in like a cool creative way, in a disgusting pervy way. You will be sitting there like they should not have gotten away with putting kids in these situations. That's so far from okay.
And people can like argue against what we're saying by, as long as it's tasteful. Nothing about this is tasteful.
Yeah,
and I get it. That makes it more like raw and real, whatever. But I personally, let's just talk about our personal feelings, which we've been doing this whole time. I don't want to see a 12-year-old girl or a 14-year-old girl in an explicit sex scene. Like, there's not nudity, but it's like, I don't want to get overly explicit because no one will want to hear that. I don't want to like tell you exactly what happens. I don't want to say exact quotes from the movie because it's so disgusting. But
and once again, like, content warning.
Yes. Number one, the way that they talk about women, and not even women, children, young girls, is appalling. And yeah, it's two teenage guys, whatever. They're going to say disgusting things. It's part of the movie. It's real. It's raw. I get it. That whole argument. Here, sitting, in the beginning of the movie, the character Telly is talking to his friend Casper. They're walking down the streets of New York City drinking beer that they stole from a convenience store, which is also upsetting to see.
Yes,
they're talking so explicitly about his sexual conquest with this 12-year-old girl. And even though it's a movie, even though it's not real, having to like listen to this conversation, having to bear witness to what's happening, you want to vomit afterwards. I'm getting overwhelmed.
And here's the thing. We have seen what is classified as the most disgusting film ever made.
Or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Yes, is its other title. We came out of kids feeling more disgusted than we did out of Sallow.
If you don't know what Sallow is about, I'm going to not read the synopsis
Yes,
because
don't do that.
we're focusing about, but I'm just going to tell you pretty much what happens. It's a movie that came out in the 70s. It's an Italian movie. It's basically where a bunch of older, rich, fascist libertines kidnap like 8 boys and girls and use them as sex slaves.
Yes, it's disgusting, but at times that film feels like a parody of itself. There are so many times where the sheer brutality of it feels like it's almost in a satirical way, and I don't know if that's just me wishful thinking or if that the director is just truly deranged that he could create something so vile.
You can watch a movie and it can be so fucked up, but then afterwards you're like, oh, well, it's just a movie. When I watched Sallow, I did think, like, how does this exist? Why would the actors be a part of this? But it's something that, even though the subject matter is obviously disturbing, if it was made in a more like serious lens, it'd probably give me nightmares. But honestly, like, it's something that you can kind of laugh at just because of how unrealistic it is and how
it would never even happen.
But what I'm saying is, like, it feels so far removed from you that you can kind of laugh at it and be like, this is crazy, and then talk about it with your friends, and then whatever. You'll not forget about it, but it's not going to follow you. When you watch kids, it's so, not that I know people that have done like the horrible things that the characters in that movie have done, but it's so possible and it's so realistic that, like, no one should subject themselves to having to sit through like an hour and a half of kids just brutalizing each other. You know what I mean?
And I don't want to downplay how absolutely vile Sallow is. We were just using it in like a comparison with kids, but like
But the point is that Sallow is more, it feels more satirical. So it's like it's just kind of over the top craziness, but kids is just,
it feels like they're mocking them.
It's over the top in a way where such horrible things are happening, especially to underage girls, but it could still be real. It could still happen. I feel physical anger when I talk about this movie.
Yes, it really bothers me how they, even going back to the quotes for a minute, how they can just say that, oh, we just needed AIDS as a plot device, really. We needed our, like, woman tied to the train tracks.
It's just throwing more horrible on top of horrible.
You start to wonder if the characters are actually, like, a reflection of the director and the writer. That's why I don't trust them.
So, like you said, back to the quotes, because you gotta reference a quote here and there. Chloe Sevigny talked about how still today fans approach her, come up to her, and repeat lines from the last scene in the movie. And like I said before, I didn't really want to be specific with scenes in the movie just because of how sickening it is, but I will for this sake. And I don't want to like shove a content warning down your throat again, but I think it's really important because the movie ends with Chloe Sevigny's character, who played Jenny, and like we said, Jenny the whole time was trying to find Telly because he gave her HIV and she wants to stop another underage girl from getting the same fate. So the movie ends where she fails to do so and is drugged and raped on a couch.
Yep.
Next to a child. So it's as horrible as it sounds, yeah. But as I was saying before, fans, which I don't know if you can even call them fans, still approach her today and repeat lines from the scene where she's raped. Is that the impact that this movie has on people?
Just seeing people praise it and talk about how beautiful in a dark way it is sickens me. Because how could you come out of watching Kids, 1995, director Larry Clark, by saying that it is beautiful?
There was an article calling Kids an American masterpiece.
You know what? Maybe it is reflective of America. Okay.
Exactly.
Anyways, we both gave it half a star on Letterboxd.
1/2 of a star. I didn't even want to give it anything, but you can't go lower than that, unfortunately.
I would have loved to give it nothing, but unfortunately, that was
to summarize, never ever watch this, and if you do watch it and you enjoy it, don't
vocalize that.
I'm scared. If you were in a room with me, I'd probably be afraid of you.
Yeah, I'd probably shiver at the sight of you. Okay, on to the next one, because that one definitely we had a lot to say.
That movie gives me hives. I need to move on.
Okay, so the next one we have is Buffalo 66, 1998, director Vincent Gallo. Here's the description from Letterboxd. Billy Brown just got out of jail. Now he's going to serve some real time. He's going home. Billy is released after 5 years in prison. In the next moment, he kidnaps teenage student Layla and visits his parents with her, pretending that she is his girlfriend and that they will soon marry.
Many things to say about this movie, and
I think the first is that we just have to acknowledge the Stockholm syndrome,
right.
that and just how they like glorify it. At least in my opinion. Maybe some people don't agree with that. First of all, his Vincent Gallo's character absolutely is glorified, and they try to make you feel sympathetic after he kidnaps this girl.
Yeah, like to explain further with the Stockholm syndrome, basically, like he said before with the synopsis, this dude gets out of prison and his parents call him, or he calls his parents, I don't really remember, and they're like, hey, when are you going to bring your wife over here? Because he's obviously lied to his family that he has a wife. They didn't even know he was in prison. So he
Yes.
kidnaps Christina Ricci, love her. He kidnaps this
Great.
young girl. You have to assume she's a teenager. And pretend like he basically forces her to pretend that he's his wife, whatever. And at the end, they fall in love. It's disgusting.
The character of Billy is just a terrible homophobic, misogynistic person.
Which is who Vincent Gallo is in
Yes,
real life.
I was just about to say it's reflective of Vincent Gallo. He is disgusting, and he makes this movie even more unbearable to sit through.
The reason why I wanted to watch this for the first time, I watched it a couple months ago on Hulu, and I saw people talking about it, and I love Christina Ricci, so I was like, this seems like a cult classic indie film I've never seen. Let's check it out.
Mhm.
And I have heard about Vincent Gallo before because he has this other movie, The Brown Bunny, with also Chloe Sevigny, ironic.
Mhm. Oh
And
wow.
it's also disgusting, so let's not talk about that.
Not surprised.
So I knew of him, but before I watched this, I Googled him because he also directs it and stars as Billy. And let's just get out of the way. He's horrible. He's a Trump supporter. He's
Yes,
a severe asshole. It's like, do I want to spend an hour and a half watching
Mhm.
something that this asshole created?
Yeah.
And I did, unfortunately.
Now listen, if I had to say something nice about the film, I would say that it's very stylistically interesting, and you can't take that away from it because
That's what I was going to
there
say.
are a lot of choices that I was like, oh, that like if I didn't hate this movie, I would like it.
The reason why I hate it is because not only the plot, like the fact that, okay, it's a couple steps back. Vincent Gallo at the time of making this was like what, in his 30s, maybe almost 40. Christina Ricci was 18 years old. So it's a grown man with this young girl. Yeah, she's 18, but I don't care. The age gap is still an age gap and it's still disgusting.
Still
So
gross.
that made me uncomfortable, obviously. And I was like, oh, poor Christina. But then the movie's the same kind of thing. This grown man, young girl, you're supposed to appreciate the fact that they're falling in
Mhm.
love. I don't think
Yeah.
so. But when I did see this for the first time, I wasn't really focused on the fact that Vincent Gallo is a jerk, and I did hate the premise of the movie, and I
Mhm.
wrote that in my review. I sound like I'm like a film critic. I'm not. Trust me. My Letterboxd reviews are just like one-liners
Oh, same.
sometimes. But what I said about this one is that the style is very nice. It's very, I don't want to say this because it sounds cringy, but it is very aesthetically pleasing.
Mhm.
If a good movie was with this style, the way it was shot, the visuals, I would love it. I gave
Yes,
it
exactly.
did I just say initially?
Initially,
Just made a
you were.
word, write it down. Initially, I gave it 3.5 stars, which is way too high. It's now 1.5 star, just
Mhm.
because upon reflection, how disgusting it is,
Yes,
how disgusting Vincent Gallo is. Don't want to credit him with 3.5 stars. But the reason
like
why I rated it
yeah.
so high was because of how much I love Christina Ricci and the fact that it was really, really
Mhm.
aesthetically pleasing. Like it looked really
Yeah,
nice.
but you took those moments to step back and realize that, hey, just because it's stylistically interesting doesn't save it from all of its other flaws, and there's a lot.
No, yeah. I mean, the premise is gross and Billy's character's gross. The beginning of the movie, he's just deeply homophobic for no reason. And
Yeah.
Vincent Gallo made this himself, so it's
Mhm.
obviously reflecting his actual personality. So it's like, why would I want to praise a movie not only made by an asshole, but starring an asshole? You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
If it
yeah.
had a different ending, if it wasn't made by Vincent Gallo, maybe it would
If
be
they didn't
really good.
glorify his character,
Mhm.
then perhaps.
If they
But
didn't make a girl that was kidnapped fall in love with her kidnapper, maybe I'd be like,
mhm.
ooh, this is
Yep.
good.
But alas, it is not.
Poor Christina Ricci. Where has she gone? Where is she now?
Yeah.
Come back to us, please.
I hope doing okay.
And I hope Vincent Gallo is not.
Uh,
Before I started doing this with you, I was like, maybe I should just be nice. Maybe I should be.
no.
Maybe
Mm-mm.
I shouldn't have such a hard blow on these movies. You know
Yeah.
what? Some deserve it.
Yeah, I basically called Harmony Korine and Larry Clark like pervs.
Pedophiles. I saw so many people on like Stan Twitter praising Harmony Korine, and I was like, what's up? I don't know what else he's done that's good. The only thing that he's done that might be good was like photograph Harry Styles, is what I saw.
Maybe that's
Everything
why I
else
praised
he's
him.
made is either horrible or just gross. So, but I digress.
And now we move on because I'm ready to put that behind me.
This next one is just,
Oh God.
it's not that I loathe it, it's just that it's
Mhm.
so bad. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I agree.
Here we go. So it's Velvet Goldmine, came out the same year as Buffalo 66, 1998, directed by Todd Haynes. Here we go. Tagline: Style matters, even when it comes to murder. Was there even any murder in this movie? Anyway, almost a decade has elapsed since Bowie asked glam rock superstar Brian Slade escaped the spotlight of the London scene. Now, investigative journalist Arthur Stewart is on an assignment to uncover the truth behind the enigmatic Slade. Stewart himself, forged by the music of the 1970s, explores the larger-than-life stars who were once idols and what has become of them since the turn of the new decade. Too long of a synopsis just to say it's about nothing.
Nothing.
There's no plot. I
Yes.
know I just read a plot, but there's no plot.
The plot. Okay, here's the thing. If there is a plot, the plot feels like an afterthought here, which is basically to say that they just had a bunch of scenes in mind. They were like, "Ooh, let's do this like Bowie shit," and then they
Let's do
tried to
this
create a
Bowie
plot
shit.
afterwards, which obviously, according to us, did not work.
Listen, the tagline, quirky, it's great. The synopsis could be amazing. The cast, listen, there are many things in my life that I would do for Ewan McGregor. I would
Yes.
do so many things for Ewan McGregor. I watched this movie for Ewan McGregor. Tony Collette's in this movie. Christian Bale's in this movie. The main reason why I watched this did I hear that you see Ewan McGregor's ass covered in glitter? Yes. Yes, I did. I'm human, okay?
I seriously had. I think I can speak for both of us when I say that we had no clue what was going on the entire time, and we even to the point where we burst out into laughter so many times because it was so ridiculous.
The only movie that we've mentioned so far that we didn't watch together was Buffalo 66, but the rest so far that we did watch together, and we watched Velvet Goldmine together, actually most recently.
Yeah, wasn't that
And
that
it's just 2 hours of no plot development whatsoever. It's so bad. And yes, there's like Ewan McGregor plays a gay Bowie rock star, and you'd think that that would be amazing.
lovely?
But it's so bad. The movie is just so horrible. It makes no sense sometimes. It's just a bunch of random scenes put together.
And it's just
Ugh,
the
so much
aesthetic of
potential.
70s Britain and like that whole scene had so I cannot emphasize this enough, so much potential. And
Right.
then once again, like the man who fell to earth, what happened?
Flop and a half.
What?
Flop
And
and a half.
speaking of, I think it's important to note the connections to David Bowie here. Once again, like
Ooh.
this is titled after one of his songs, Velvet Goldmine. From my research, at least, he, after seeing this movie, he wanted nothing to do with it. So,
Understandably so.
yes, very understandably so. But that's insane.
And another thing I was going to mention before,
Oh my god.
the performances, like the acting, you can't even tell if it's good because the scenes are so jumbled and the timeline is so messed up. And Toni Collette is a fantastic actress. Let me tell you, she's one of my favorites probably. She can nail a performance like you've never seen before. But in this movie, I wanted to scream into a pillow because of how hard I was laughing. She could not choose between a British accent and an American accent.
It would switch in the middle of a sentence. It was almost as if it was on purpose, but it wasn't.
It is so funny.
Yep, that's it. It's bad.
That's one of those movies like, yeah, I hate kids for many reasons, but
Mhm.
something like Velvet Goldmine, it's just a bad movie. It's
Yeah,
just a great premise executed horribly.
That's the best way to put it, because like you said in the beginning, I don't loathe it. I don't like despise it for any specific reason. It was just not a good movie.
It's another edition of the gay Ewan McGregor cinematic universe, but at what cost? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
By the way, the funniest part of this movie is when Ewan McGregor. I'm sorry, I'm taking over just talking about Ewan
No, you're
McGregor.
good.
We could do this whole thing just about how much we love Ewan McGregor. But the scene when Ewan was performing on stage as his rock star character, and we were so into it, we were like on the phone, like, hell yeah. And then it cut to like a flashback talking about how his character like gave his brother a blowjob.
Oh my god.
And we were like,
Calista,
what?
I forgot that happened.
You're so into the scene of Ewan McGregor performing, and then they just say, oh yeah, he's like incestuous or something. And we're like, did they have to include that?
And then it was like, wasn't there also like an alien side plot? Did I imagine that?
I have no idea. I
Do you
don't know
remember
what
that?
happened. I don't, because you could tell me that anything happened in this movie and I'd believe you, because it was so just a mess of
That
scenes.
is so funny.
I'm just trying to convey how bad this movie is, and I don't want to be
Mhm.
like intellectual about it, because
Yeah, we don't have to be. Listen,
oh my gosh, I'm sweating. Oh, mainly from
that's
laughter.
all I have to say about it.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor, please, please,
Mhm.
please do
Please.
better. And you have done better, and we thank you for that.
And you have, and you can. We know you can. So
And
just,
you will.
and you will. And he will.
Before
Wow.
you read the next one, I just want to say something before
Yes,
that.
this is going to be an unpopular opinion.
I wanted to say that I showed Nick this next movie. The only reason why I showed it to him years later.
You actually showed me the next two. The
Oh,
last.
I did. I like to put Nick through the same pain I go through. And we talk a lot about things that we hate because it's fun. And I've said that I hate this next movie so much. I've talked about it so many times. And at one point, I was just like, you need to watch it just to understand what I mean. And if you like it, I'm sorry. So many people that I know have recommended this movie to me, and I don't know how to tell them that I've already seen it and then I hate it.
Okay. So, here we go. Green Room, 2015. Director. How do you pronounce his last name?
So I did just look up a video because I didn't know
Okay.
how to say his last name. It's Jeremy Saulnier.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to try to repeat that because I don't want to. Anyways, the tagline is one way in, no way out.
Ooh.
Oh, well, a punk rock band becomes trapped in a secluded venue after finding a scene. Whoa. I sounded Kansas. Sounded Kansas. Wow. Okay. After finding a scene of violence. For what they saw, the band themselves become targets of violence from a gang of white power skinheads who want to eliminate all evidence of the crime.
Listen.
Now, I'm looking at my rating and I gave it 1 star as opposed to Calissa's half a star. I think I kind of am leaning more. I don't know.
It's just funny because whenever I think about what I hate the most in a movie, before I saw kids, this came to mind immediately. My brother showed it to me years ago because he was like, Calista, this movie has great ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's watch it. It has Anton Yelchin. Yay. And I don't trust what my brother suggests because it's usually bad. The next 2 movies he told me to watch, they were bad. Green Room is, again, this is a very unpopular opinion from what I've seen online.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie makes me so physically angry, my hands in a fist, like the meme of Arthur right now.
Yes.
Just because of how frustrated I am.
And I think it's important to start with the logic being the reason why it's so flawed.
I haven't seen this in a couple years. Yeah, your mind's probably more like refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember most of it, and what I do remember more than anything is that I hate it.
So here, let me just walk through the logic for just the beginning logic for a second. How does a punk band with a very small audience, which they have self-proclaimed that they have a small audience, and no social media presence because they were making a very big effort to get away from social media, how do they put together a full tour, let alone even book a singular venue?
Right.
Okay? Not even that, but just everything that happened could have been avoided. They were made aware of the fact that they were going to be playing for neo-Nazis. They were made aware of it.
And not only were they aware of it, like they did it.
Yes, they did it anyways. So the characters did not make the situation easier for themselves. They're one dimensional. You could really, like, any of them could have been like the final one to survive, and it would have been whatever because
That was
they act like the same character, so you don't
that
care.
was the biggest thing for me. Once it ended, I was like, I didn't care about any one of those people. They
Hmm.
could have been obliterated, and I would have been like,
Yes.
okay,
It's
fine.
just I don't remember any of the characters' names
Nope.
because I mean, for first of all, I don't care to, but they got themselves in these situations. They really don't have very like distinct character traits. They don't have any sort of like growth development. Like it's just not there, which is what I mean when I'm saying they're one dimensional. They just like
The tagline is one way in, no way out, right? So
mhm,
then this band is trapped in this Nazi bar, and the Nazis are trying to think of some elaborate way to get rid of these kids, right?
mhm,
The plot is just so stupid. Like you're watching this whole movie of these people trying to run away from these Nazis. If they really wanted to get rid of these punk kids, they could just kill them.
mhm.
And then
Seriously.
you have to follow these characters for over an hour when you don't care about them. It's so stupid. And then
Mhm.
it ends, and I'm like, why would I care?
Listen, here's two things that I don't think were the worst. Number one, I thought the gore was very good. On the other side of that, it didn't feel necessary for this movie. I mean, you can say that about really any movie that gore is in, and that's just like your prerogative. But I didn't see the need for the gore in this movie, at least to the level that it was. Like, I thought it looked great, but what was the need? And then on top of that, obviously, I love dead Nazis. So give me all of that.
Right.
Killing
Yes.
Nazis? Absolutely. I'll eat that up.
Mhm.
However, the film wasn't good.
Because of how flawed the logic is, you aren't invested at all. And
Yes.
maybe I'm thinking too much into it because a lot of people seem to love this movie. I guess they're just like having fun watching this all unfold, but like
Which
I
is fine.
care. I care about the logic and I get like I want it to all make sense.
There are definitely going to be casual people who watch this and were like, "Oh, it was fun." Like, okay,
5 stars.
good for you, yeah. But
But it can't be me. I don't even care enough about this movie to give it the benefit of the doubt, to give
there you
it just it's just stupid.
go.
Half a star from me. Yeah.
And 1 star from me for the dead Nazis.
Speaking of flawed logic,
Oh wow, what a great segue!
thank you very much. Listen, hate, is it a strong word for this one? Yes, maybe.
Yeah, it
Sort of.
is.
So I've heard a lot about this next one for a long time. I heard when it premiered at, I think it was Sundance Film Festival a while ago. I was so excited to see it. I heard how dark it was. I heard how disturbing it was. I'm down for that all the time when it comes to horror movies. It's the movie's The Lodge. Let's not be
Yeah,
cryptic anymore. The Lodge, 2019. Again, my brother said let's watch it, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I've heard it's not really that great, but it's so frustrating for so many reasons, and I'll get into it. So, again, it's The Lodge, 2019, the same directors of Good Night Mommy, also horror movie.
yeah, I didn't see that one, but a lot of people say similar things that they did for the Lodge with Goodnight Mommy.
Oh my God, they're so similar, and I'll get into that too. So, the tagline is You're Not Welcome Here. A soon to be stepmom is snowed in with her fiance's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place.
I actually kind of want to start with what I liked first off,
Let's
because
do
there
that.
is more than the other movies, and I think it's like a breath of fresh air. With that, I thought the acting was good between the woman and the children. Maybe not so much the father, but for what the children were supposed to be like as crazy and as like God obsessed, like they were very good actors in being annoying.
They aren't like insane kids. They're just like disturbed. Like they portray like being normal teenagers really well, but like also fucked up.
Hmm. And on top of that, I thought that the initial like buildup of the atmosphere, and I'm saying initial because I have more to say on this. I thought the beginning atmosphere was not bad either, and I think it really, really could have done well, and it had the potential to be really unnerving if there weren't severe flaws. But
Yes, like the atmosphere
hmm,
is set up really nice. It's a remote cabin in the wilderness. It's shot beautifully. The dismal music. It's creepy. It's disturbing. Like the way it's filmed is nice.
Yeah, and there were pretty decent like angles too, how it was shot.
Cinematography was nice, and just the overall feeling of unease was established really well. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna deny that. It's a movie that like every single moment is bleak, but I do like that a lot
Mhm.
sometimes.
Okay, you might not agree with this, but I think that it's in the vein of talking about like the positives. I think it's very distinct. I would be able to say, "Oh, this is the lodge, right?" And that's like an important to have that identity and like craft that. But what they did with it was very unfortunate.
But another thing I also did kind of feel like, and I have seen after the fact a lot of people say this, it did feel a little bit like a Hereditary ripoff
Oh,
with like the dollhouse, and
oh, the dollhouse for sure. They absolutely.
it was very like trying to be Hereditary sometimes. But I really wanna summarize the logic
Yeah, go for it.
because it makes me want to cry.
Now we're getting into the bad.
When I told Nick to watch this, again trying to put him through the pain that I go through because it's horrible to suffer alone. If you maybe tweaked the plot a little bit, the entire plot, it might be an amazing movie. Like when I watched it, I didn't not like I wasn't miserable, but I was so frustrated with what
Yes,
was
that's the
happening.
perfect word.
Yes, it made the experience miserable. Like I didn't dislike watching it, but it's so frustrating. It made me feel physically like enraged. So it's about, like we said before, two kids and the dad and his new girlfriend. Spoiler again. So the kids' mother is going to go through a divorce with the dad against her will. She doesn't want to go through with it. I think
Mhm.
the dad might have been cheating on her. So the dad has the side girlfriend and wants to divorce the mom. She's obviously like unstable. She commits suicide, yeah.
Yep.
So obviously her children are going to be disturbed and they're very religious. They're like upset that they're now, according to their beliefs, their mother's not going to get into heaven. They're heartbroken. And they find out that the dad's girlfriend is the lone survivor of a mass cult suicide. She was in a
Yeah.
cult. They all killed themselves and she survived.
Yeah, there's so much happening and
But it sounds interesting, right? It could be interesting. Like, oh, what's up?
yeah.
So the kids find that out. They call her crazy. They're like, oh my God, his new girlfriend's crazy, whatever. And then the most frustrating part about the movie to me is the dad and his horrible idea. So if you have an obviously unstable what? An obviously unstable girlfriend. She's going through a lot. She's dealing
Yes.
with her past. She's
Her trauma.
obviously suffering from some sort of PTSD, right?
Hmm.
And you have two now emotionally unstable children. Their mother just killed herself. His idea to put them alone together in
Yeah.
an isolated cabin during a blizzard,
And then he
days
leaves.
days before Christmas, and he leaves. And the kid was like the teenage son, who's played by Jaden something from the It movie.
Hmm.
He was like, "No, I don't want to do that. That's a horrible idea. No, 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 don't want to do it."
Yeah, why
So
would you?
his kids are obviously against it because it's understandable. Like, why would they want to be in this awkward situation? They also like know about Grace's past. They're kind of uncomfortable with her. And the movie tries to set Grace as the villain.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this creepy ex-cult member.
In reality, it's like, oh, this poor girl who's suffering from her past trauma and like severe PTSD.
Exactly. So they're kind of like villainizing or
Hmm.
vilifying mental illness, which is also a really annoying part of the movie. But not only is the plot twist so predictable, at least to me, I guessed it right away, but it's insanely unrealistic.
Okay. So you had asked if you could tell me the plot twist beforehand, and I was like, sure, because I don't really care. Even had you not told me, I am 99% sure I could have guessed it myself. They
Hmm.
don't do any work in trying to not make it like ambiguous, at least in my opinion. And especially what bothered me the most, I don't know if you want to get here right now, but especially the build up to the reveal of the plot twist, it just happened. They do this build up and then there's no like music to like or score
Yes.
rather signify that something is being revealed. Really, you're just blown back. You're like, "Oh, that's it." Like, I thought that was like common knowledge but that's the big twist of the movie. Whatever semblance of a buildup there was to that. Come on now.
Yeah, so Grace's ex-cult, the whole cult thing was you have to repent your sins. You have to die and repent your sins, and then you'll move on into another life. By the way, I'm going to interject on myself. They literally like recreated the Heaven's Gate suicide. The scene of her cult suicide was literally identical to Heaven's Gate, but that's besides the point. I thought that was like kind of exploitative. Anyway, so
Absolutely.
the kids decide to pull off the greatest, and by greatest I mean like largest, not actually great because it's so depraved,
It's
gaslighting scheme ever. They basically, I'm again gonna try to go quick, they convince Grace that they all died and are in purgatory, and in order to move on to heaven, they have to repent their sins. How do they do this? They literally hide all of her medication, all of their personal belongings. They take down all of the decorations that Grace worked so hard to do by herself. They hide it in like the attic area where she won't see. They hide all the phones, all the food. The kids play audio recordings of her ex-cult leader to make her go crazy. So they show scenes of Grace like having blackouts and going like insane slowly, but the kids are doing it to her. So it's interesting, but no kids would ever think of such an evil scheme and be able to pull it off. There's no way that would ever happen. And the worst part of this movie, the stupid little bitch daughter lets the door stay open and lets the dog run out and it dies. Are you kidding me?
That's what kickstarts the plot twist and getting revealed. But it just feels like such a plateau. And it was the most underwhelming revelation of all time.
It's just so sad. It's not even a horror to me. It's just like a tragedy. Like this poor woman who's dealing with PTSD from a horrible past tries to like help these kids get over their trauma with what just happened to them, and she tries to, you know, be a stepmother to them, and they just absolutely ruin her life for no reason other than they're petty. And it's so sad. And the way it ends is so predictable as well. Like she kills, it's alluded to that she kills the kids and then herself. And the kids are like freaking out, like they're surprised. They did this to her.
We're the ones who like sparked this. Overall, I didn't like hate certain parts of it. Some parts I thought were pretty cool, but obviously others I had very big issues with. But every single ounce of potential was wasted with the terrible logic and just mundane, I don't know.
This was pretty much just like a rant between us, you know?
Sometimes you need to let that out.
Yeah. Less of a formal discussion than it was just a rant, which is fine.
Yeah, that was the last official one, but if you had any like honorable mentions
of movies that I hate,
yes.
I don't really, because whenever I go to watch a movie for the first time, I can kind of gauge whether or not I'll like it, and sometimes I'm shocked that I don't like it, sometimes I'm shocked that I do, but I haven't seen many movies where I'm like, I hate that so much.
Yes.
You know, I've seen things where it's like, oh, that was kind of bad, but
like, I'm usually a person that can find enjoyment in anything especially if I watch it with somebody.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, so it wasn't wasted time because we sat through this together. But these movies, on the other hand,
this whole podcast just smells like unemployed.
Listen, I hope we didn't come off as like such pretentious people who like love film and like.
Oh, definitely not. Because the only thing we had to say about these were like, man, these suck.
Yeah, people will tune in and they'll be like, wow, okay, I don't even need to like appreciate their opinions.
For sure, no one is going to listen to this besides me in editing.
Yeah, and me when you send it back.
So that's it.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed listening to how much we hate films.
If I had to take away anything, I would just say don't watch kids.
Yes, absolutely. Steer clear of kids, no matter how intrigued you are at the terrible things we said. If you even are to begin with, just avoid it. Because your
watch
life
any of these.
Yeah.
Maybe watch The Lodge.
I was going to say the same exact thing. The Lodge, you could watch it, but you'll have the same opinion as us, I'm sure. You'll be a little bit mad about it.
I mean, it was kind of a short list.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad at all.
Yeah.
So,
and
I'm pretty proud.
I think that our reasons are justified.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree with us, that's totally fine. Let's talk about
have
it.
That opinion. Except I would really like to know if you like kids, because then I would.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Oh.
I have to burp.
Go for it. I'm so proud.
Woo! I think that was a great way to close out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.